Today we're celebrating fall and all the wonderful fresh ingredients that are coming into our kitchens now, including mushrooms. These are Champignon de Paris, or cultivated mushrooms, the brown ones, and leeks. And you can see by these beautiful long leeks that they've been grown forest, either underground or forest with a bell over it. But you can see how beautiful and fresh these are because the roots themselves are beautiful and clean, and really tell me that these leeks have not been hanging around in the back of a grocery store for a long time. These came from the market, from the producer, the farmer himself. And I'm going to make a tourte aux champignons et poireaux. And a tourte is like a tart, except it has a lid over the top of it. So it's a two-pastry, savory pie. And we're going to make that today in my kitchen at Command. I'm going to start with the pâte brisée and make that and have it ready, and then we'll prepare our mushrooms and our leeks and add the crème fraîche, and then it's ready to go in the oven. It's quite a simple dish. So now it's time to prep the mushrooms. And these are Champignon de Paris, and they come usually in white or brown caps. They can also be about a third of this size, very small button mushrooms, or this larger size. And what I'm doing here is just snapping off the bottom and pulling off the stem that has all the compost on. And that's the first step to cleaning them. So next, just grab a paper towel and a little brush. I use a pastry brush that I have in the kitchen, and just brush off any of the excess compost because you haven't washed these. And sometimes I wash my mushrooms, but not these. They were just the bottoms were, and I got rid of those anyway. And just brushed off any little bits of leaves or dirt matter. These are grown in like a mushroom farm in compost, so they're not like out in the wild. Sometimes you have leaves stuck to any wild mushrooms you might have. And then they'll be all set to use when we're ready to assemble the tourte. So I'm going to make a classic pâte brisée for my tourte aux poireaux et champignons. And this pâte brisée is for a savory pastry, so I'm not going to add any sugar. I am just going to add a little pinch of salt to it and an egg to help hold it together. I am doing more than one thing at a time. Usually when I make a meal, I have 2 or 3 things going. It all comes together more or less together at the end. I'll do my dessert first. I'll get whatever takes the longest cooking. In this case, I have a poulet vigneron cooking in the oven and starting to smell delicious. And this is going to be the first course, is going to be this tourte aux poireaux and champignons, or leek and mushroom tart. And I'm going to make a pastry for about 300 grams of flour, because I have a bottom and a top. And I'm using 2 different kinds of flour, which is where pastry is so forgiving. I'm using an all-purpose normal flour, which I just put 150 grams. And now I'm using some, what are called T80 in France, is a slightly coarser semi-whole wheat flour. And that's going to give this just a little bit more nuttiness for the savory tourte, and a little color. It'll be a little browner looking to start with, because this flour will look much browner when it's wet, you'll see. So I have 300 grams. I'll go ahead and put in a pinch of salt now. And like with most pâte brisée, I'm going to use half of the weight of flour, in fact. So 150 grams of butter for 300 grams of flour. And I'll just go ahead and cut it into as I measure it. This has just come from the refrigerator, but it's a warm day here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add. I don't need the butter for anything else. And I can go ahead and add it just like this into the flour and salt. And I'm going to use my hands to break it up. If you watch me make pastry, this is how I do it all the time. You can use, maybe someday I'll have to not use my hands, but for now I can still crumble and do nice things, and I really want to keep working all those muscles as much as I can, but you could put this into a food processor if you need or would like to, and just give it a quick couple buzzes. You don't want it super fine. I want to leave these butter chunks quite coarse. So not as fine as sand, like a pâte sablé would be, and not completely mixed in like cornmeal is. So oftentimes you see a designation say mix it until it's like cornmeal, but actually it's not going to be that fine. Once I pass the butter over my fingers, my thumbs sort of smash it into little flakes. That gives me a little flakiness to this pastry crust as well. And just if any big chunks are in there, I'll feel them with my hands, so I'll just break them up a little bit more. That's it. It really doesn't have to be any coarser, any finer, sorry, than that. Let me show you here. You can see there's some big chunks as well as some small little fine pieces of butter in here. And when we mix these up, they're going to roll them out. They're all going to make some fine marbling into this. So make a bit of a well in the center, and then I'm going to use an egg. These are nice big eggs. So one egg here, and I'm going to get a little bit of water, just about a tablespoon of water, just to help break up the white of the egg yolk, or the egg whites in the... Depending on the flour, and I can tell already that this coarser semi-whole grain flour is going to absorb a little bit more liquid, so I might add just a bit more water. Another tablespoon. Until this all just wants to come together in a ball. Now that was my timing for my chicken, which is perfect because now I'm going to just put my flour to wrap my dough to rest while I check on the chicken. I'm going to go ahead and put it together in a bowl and then tip it out onto the board. Mix this and just come together. And you can see this is quite a soft dough because that's how I like to work my pastry. This is my probably #1 favorite tool in my kitchen. It allows me to clean up, use things. And I'm just going to let this sit a minute while I check on my poulet vigneron, which I'm doing for another video, and then we'll be ready to roll this out. So remember I said this is a tourte, not a tarte. So that means there's a bottom pastry, a filling, and a top pastry, with very thin layers. It's not like a big thick pie or meat pie. And although I know in Canada they use tourte also, often to indicate meat pies, this is made just with leeks and mushrooms. I'm going to take about 1/3 of this, will be for the top because it's going to be quite thin. And the bottom 2/3 I'm going to use for the for the bottom. We'll roll that up now. French rolling pin. I love this little pin because it allows me to, first of all, it goes in my suitcase really easily, but it also allows me to maneuver and work the pastry very delicately without having to put a lot of weight on it. I'm not using my arms like this. I'm just letting it do its own thing. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough flour underneath this. And if it starts to fall apart, just give it a little squish. So warm in here, I can see my butter, little chunks are melting already, so I'm going to work pretty quickly. I'm going to use about a 10-inch pastry, 27 centimeters if you want to get precise, and that's going to serve 8 people, nicely 6 to 8 people. Now this pastry is working differently than normal for me because it has that whole wheat flour in it, and so you have to play around with different materials and see what you like. And make sure that it's not sticking to the board. And I just need a nice circle. Super flaky here. And I only need to make this just as big as my tart pan is and a little bit to go up the edges. The way you do that is you measure and you go all the way to the edge. So you can see I need to come a little bit further out. Do it. So the easiest way to get this flat piece of pastry, that's quite fragile, in the pan is just to roll it up on the rolling pin. And you scrape up anything that's sticking. Don't move it, just leave it where it is. Lift the pan in place and then just unroll it right onto the tart pan. Make sure that it fits down into the bottom so that you've got the edge. And any extra bit, I'm just going to pull off and work into the sides. It might need just a little extra on the top. And I'm just going to leave this quite rough because you see when we go to put the top on and everything in it, it's going to end up just getting folded over. But let's go ahead and roll out the top and have it ready to go. So it doesn't stick. I'm going to add a little bit more flour onto the board. And just make a circle exactly the size of the top. A little bit. That's about right there. And what I'll do is, because it's warm enough in the kitchen, I'm going to go ahead and roll this up and keep it in the refrigerator until I'm ready to put it together. Don't press this so you don't want it sticking together. I can just lay this like this, put it in the refrigerator until we're ready to go. So I have these beautiful leeks that we got at the market today. Fall is into winter is when we harvest the leeks, and so these were planted probably in the winter time last year, and they're just being harvested now. So the easiest way, you often know leeks are dirty, people have a lot of problems getting down into here, and if you open this up, you'll see that there is some dirt, sand, and silt down into this part. But because I'm going to slice these, not worrying about cleaning them yet. I'm going to clean them after I slice them up. It makes it much easier. So the first thing I'll do, I'm not sure how many I'm going to need. Let's start with 3. Trim off the root end. And something that you can look at when you buy leeks is you'll see that the center, there's a center stem. If the leeks are really old, that'll be very distinct and dark or darker in color because it's going to try to flower and send a shoot out with flower and seeds like all plants do. So right now I'm just going to peel off the outside, a little bit more fibrous pale green. All of these can be kept to be used in bouillon or stock. And then I'm going to just use basically the whites and the pale part. So this one's longer, this one here, and go all the way to here with these. This green top I'll wash. You can see there's a lot of dirt on here already. I'll go ahead and wash these up and they can be kept for making bouillon, and we're going to make some beans for cassoulet later in the week. And then let's just slice these. I don't want them super thin, but I don't want them really thick either. It's sort of a Goldilocks version, right? Just right, about 1, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters. Like a coin, a quarter. That's about what you're looking for. A €2 coin. We're going to cook these, so they're going to get soft and cook down a little bit. And they're nice and fresh. You can actually hear how much water is in these, the way they sound when they're being cooked, or when they're being cut. I want to have enough to make a nice layer across the bottom of my tourte. They'll cook down quite a bit, you'll see, so this will be just about the right amount here. Very hard to measure this out ahead of time because they'll cook down, and depends on the size of your tart pan. You might do this on a sheet pan and make a big square. Make a nice big square like that. So I'm just going to take these now, put them into a bowl and with a colander, and give them a really good rinse with a lot of running water, cold water. Let that water fill up the bowl, then lift the leeks out so that all the dirt's going to the bottom. Do that 2 or 3 more times in my sink until they're ready to cook. So that's one time. I'm going to do it 2 more times at least until I see no grit in the bottom of my pan. So you can see in the rinsing, I really washed these 3 times. I filled up a big pot of water, put them in, let the water run over them, mushed them around with my hand a lot, so they started to break up. So I have lots of little rings. Number one, that means all the dirt has come through and dropped to the bottom of the pot. I pulled them off the top of the pot into this colander. Then I dumped that water, and I did that 2 more times so there's no more grit in that water. And I can see that it's really clean. While they're still wet, these are gonna go right into the pan. So I'm gonna move over to the stove, and I'm gonna move my little cam with me as well. You can see what I'm gonna do there. Okay, a couple tablespoons of oil, just sunflower oil or neutral oil, and then while this is wet, I'm gonna go ahead and put these all in, and these are gonna start to cook down. Speeds things up if you have a lid that you can pop on the top. That'll steam these. We want them just to get soft. They don't have to cook all the way through because you're going to get baked, but we want them to be soft before we put them on the pastry. So here's a little speeded up version. I put the lid on and just from time to time give the leeks a little shake over the fire so that not sticking on the bottom. But I want to make sure that I'm not losing any of the moisture as well. I want to keep the moisture in there. So you see that as that escapes, I put the lid right back on and it keeps that moisture going. Now the total cooking time of this is about 3 to 5 minutes. You don't want to wander very far away. Again, remember, you don't want to brown the leeks. You just want these to wilt and get very soft. One of the things to think of when you're making something like this is we want to reduce the amount of oven time. It's going to only be about 25 minutes in the oven, in a very hot oven. So for these leeks to be soft and melting, they have to be cooked long enough before we use them in the tourte itself. So just take your time, let them cook till they're nice and soft. You can leave them at this point, turn them off, walk away, let them cool down, and then come back and use them again once they're cooled down. That's another way you can do it. While those are cooking, I'll go ahead and prepare the mushrooms. These just can be in nice thick slices. Again, that's sort of just at that, like a coin, a heavy coin, silver dollar mushrooms. I just leave there because they'll be all ready to go when we assemble the tourte. think in about 10 more years, my days of using these heavy cast iron pans are going to be over. It's full. That chicken, or that weighed a couple kilos. The grapes, there was a kilo of grapes. There were 2 glasses of wine. There was an onion. So you have to be aware that when you're putting these things in ovens, how heavy they are empty. I never used to use the cast iron on the boat because it was too dangerous for me to be moving around the barge with one. But you have to think about these things as you move forward in life. So I've got my pastry all set here. The top is ready to go on top. The mushrooms are going to go on top of the leeks when the leeks are in. And then I'm going to prepare a little creme fraiche. And the creme fraiche is going to cover over everything and bake. And we're going to use an egg with it just to have it bind a little bit. Probably only need about half of what's here. So about a cup and a half. This is a nice, thick, beautiful creme fraiche, and I'm going to use 1 whole egg in it. A little salt, and a little nutmeg. Fresh nutmeg mixed with the cream is what's going to bring all of this together in these wonderful flavors. As long as you can hear that steam hissing, you know you've got lots of moisture still in there, and only just starting to turn, nothing's turned brown yet, but it's all softened. So I'll turn the heat off now and let it sit while I get that nutmeg. So nutmeg needs a good sturdy grinder or grater, shaver. This is a nice one, this old iron one. I never wash this because I don't want it to rust. And I only ever use it for nutmeg, so it'll go right back up on the wall when I'm done with it. So if you think about it, the egg and the cream is coming together like a custard would, and the creme fraiche is cultured, slightly sour or tangy. It'll make a perfect mix with these vegetables. You can let these cool down completely, or I'm going to put them in the pan and do this very quickly so it goes in the oven. So that does what they won't actually cook the bottom of the tourte. Spread them around so they're nice and evenly spaced out. So you have 1 layer of the cooked leeks. On top of that, I'm going to arrange the mushrooms. I learned this recipe, like a lot of recipes I learned when I first came to this part of France from Vetu Pompel. And Vetu is a wonderful home cook. I write a lot about her in my newsletter and my post, because I learned a lot about life from her, but I learned a lot of little things about cooking. When I asked her why she was putting the mushrooms all around so perfectly in an order when there was going to be a top on it, nobody would see it, she just shrugged her shoulder and said, because it looks better that way. And I realized that it wasn't just an affectation of having nothing better to do. It was more that they would be an even layer and they would cook evenly, so that even though when it's cut you don't see them, you know that everybody got the same amount of mushroom and leeks in every bite or in every piece that was cut. So I just go all the way around, spiral, like you do an apple tart or any other kind of open fruit tart you might do. And then I can come back in and build up the center with the ends. Let them be a little bit higher in the middle. And I want to make sure you use every single piece because nothing should go to waste in your kitchen. Now we're going to take the egg and creme fraiche mixture, nutmeg and salt, and just drizzle it over. I want to go all the way to the edges. Make sure there's some in the center. And this, as it cooks, will even thin out more and work its way down into the bottom of the tourte, so I'm not too worried about. I don't want it to be flooded. And now it's the time to put the top on. All I have to do is just come to the very edge, roll this out. And this is where I'm going to just come and tuck anything that's on the outside in. I'm going to keep it rustic looking. I want it to look homemade. I don't want it to look like I bought it at a supermarket in a little plastic bag. And then I can use a fork to actually really push the two sides, the bottom and the top, together. There'll be some juices that come up and through, and that's fine. And then just to make a little vent in the top for steam to escape. You want to make sure you go all the way through the crust, and there's a little room for that steam to come out. You can put an egg wash over the top. I'm going to put this in the oven just like this, and at the very end, I feel it needs, I'll rub a little butter over the top because that's what they always did. So into a hot oven at 200 degrees Celsius, 410 Fahrenheit, for about 25 to 30 minutes until it's all nice and brown, and not just barely golden, but really golden brown. So it's been about 25 minutes in a very hot oven, and I just peeked at the tourte. It looks fabulous. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the oven and do a quick double check. And I can tell that it's exactly where I want it to be. It's bubbling, all the crust and juices are bubbling up through here. And I'm going to take a bit of butter and just go over the hot crust, the hot pastry like this. Because that's what we do in Gascony, in our farmhouses. It's funny how little things like this, I just watched somebody do this. Fatu used to do this with all of her tarts, and I think, why does she do this? Does she know why she does it? And because it's going to taste fantastic, that little extra creamy butter over the edge, and give a little bit of a sheen to that. Now, of course, you're going to let this sit before you cut into it, because you want it to sort of set up a little bit and not be scalding hot. But you want to serve this at room temperature or warm. I'm going to cut into it now because I can't wait to take a peek at it and show you what it looks like, and I'll probably have a bite while I'm still hot enough to burn my mouth. So let's see what we can do here. The most important thing is that the bottom is nice and done, and people say, how do you know? And I said, well, by now I know my oven, I know my pastry, I trust that it's going to be done in about 25 minutes at that high temperature. But if you can't peek, it's very difficult to tell, but I can tell just cutting through here. I'm gonna go ahead and take this nice big piece out. Go ahead and take a peek to make sure you can see. So you can see the layers here of the leeks and the mushrooms, the pastry, the leeks, the mushrooms, and the pastry again. So that is a perfect example of a tourte au poireau et champignon, or leek and mushroom tourte. And I think you're going to enjoy making this at home. You have all the ingredients are easy to get. Mushrooms and leeks are no problem. Make a little pastry. If you're not confident making a pastry, go ahead and buy very good quality pre-made pastry that's all butter. Because you want that buttery flavor. And then you just serve it just like this with nothing else. If you want to have this as a starter, this would be a perfect starter course. As a luncheon, I might serve this with a green salad with a nice vinaigrette along the side. That's all you need to do here in the kitchen at Camont today, and come back again and see me soon. Right. This is much too hot to eat, but I'm going to do it anyway. So good. The butter on top makes the crust perfect. Go make this now.